Welcome, everybody. Okay, we're going to talk about lease options and creative financing. Continue with that theme. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Okay, I'm just waiting. Let's see. Anyone have an example of a joint venture agreement that can be used for flips? Okay, so Anna, that's something. Anna, you got a lawyer that you're working with? Yes. Okay. And what are you looking to do? Okay. And how is it a joint venture? Someone's bringing in the money. Okay. All right. Okay. But not as a loan, right? Okay. And have you talked to your lawyer about creating that agreement for you or putting that agreement together? Not yet. We'll call him tomorrow. Okay. The best bet, Anna, is to tell your lawyer what he wants, what you want to do with a joint venture agreement. Just because it's almost, I was just wondering maybe someone has one as a guide to have the basic points. It's almost easier for your lawyer, Anna, if you give them the particulars of the agreement for them to be able to do that. It's almost better. Why don't you do this, Anna? Talk to your lawyer tomorrow. If you still need something, reach out, okay? I find with lawyers, yeah, it's easier just to give them the particulars of something like that, and it's easier for them to put it together. Can you allow subletting within the rent-to-own program? We have a potential tenant buyer who would like to sublet part of the house he's interested in. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. Is the home going to be under your corporation or someone else's? So it's a sandwich lease option? Okay. But the corporation, the joint venture corporation is going to be the owner of the property, right? Okay. Uh, okay. Are you not putting that in the corp? You're going to put it on title? They're going to be the ones that own it? I understand, but the corporation can own it and they can finance it, which is the bigger thing. That you're bringing that money person in. I mean, it's not a big deal. You can leave it in their name. I mean, they're exposed if they want to be. I mean, yes, they have. Oh, okay, that's fine. That's much better for everybody involved. They shouldn't be exposed either. Um, so yeah, you can put someone can do a rent to own, a um, rent part of the home, um, to try to supplement their income to, make it easier for them to be able to do the project. Um, no, you don't do that. You build your plan, and if they can If they want to sublet, yeah, if they want to sublet, there's a a suite in the bottom. That's fine. I mean, they can rent that out. That's not a problem. Ryan, why don't you send me that document and I'll review it. Okay. So they can rent out the basement or part of the place. Ultimately, they're responsible for everything. You're gonna get all the, obviously on the rent to own, we're gonna get the non-refundable option consideration, the rent credits, and all that stuff. And they understand what's at stake if things don't go right. So they can rent it out. Well, that ultimately that's on them, right? That the any maintenance on the property is on them. Any damage to the property is on them. They obviously, you have a lease agreement with them. If they violate the lease agreement, then it would be on them. But wouldn't getting insurance be harder for us as an investor? What do you mean? Insurance, assurance, do you mean? Because we have tenants who have tenants. Yeah, but if they violate their own agreement, they can't violate their own agreement. They have a lease agreement with you. They can't violate, yeah, so they can't violate that lease agreement. The lease agreement. So if you have a lease agreement where they're allowed to have tenants, they can sublet. You can put additional clauses, letting them know that if anything happens to the home or because of the sublet or any challenges with that, that could violate their own lease agreement. They could lose everything. Because they can't violate their own lease agreement. So they can rent out. They can rent it out. You put a sublet clause in there that they can sublet a portion of the home, and that all responsibility of the of that tenant is with them. That being said, if the tenant creates damage or is not managed properly, depends what you want to put in there. But I mean, the lawyer would do that for you. But basically, that says that if they do anything to the property, that would be a problem. And remember, they excuse me, they want it to work too, right? You could say that. Excuse me. You could say that the individual needs to be screened, and there has to be certain things that have to be done before they can do it. You can put anything you want in a contract. But since the house has 2 units, the mortgage and everything will be more in the property taxes, right? So we need to possibly increase the rent to cover. Well, yeah, that's a math question, really. It's not really, the subletting part of it is not really part of that conversation, right? That's just a question of them absolutely being able to afford this house. So they need to be vetted that they can afford to purchase the home. So if the house, yeah, it's a numbers question. If the house costs more money, then it costs more money. They need to still meet the criteria of what they can afford, and we'll talk a little bit more about that tonight. We'll go through those examples. Any other questions? So if you have continued questions with that, Sierra, and Wilbert, you can bring them up as we go through the evening. But really, the affordability of the property has less to do with the subsidizing, subletting. That shouldn't be the assumption. They're going to be able to afford it because they're going to rent out the basement. That's a different kind of conversation, right? They need to be able to carry the mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, on their own in the purchase of the property, right? On their own. If they decide they want that to be a rental property, a partial rental property for them, that's fine. But the mortgage itself they still need to qualify for that, for the financing of that property. What if the tenant buyer says that since we are a new company, they aren't sure if we will make what? Make everything work out. But that, again, see, this is a great point. People want you to be responsible for their success. That's where you turn around and you say, look, this is why we tell all our clients to go see a lawyer. If you're, this is a legal thing. This is a contract thing. This is a question of contract and agreement. There's recourse. If we don't do what we say we're going to do, there's going to be recourse because of the contract. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, we have recourse because of the contract. That's why you need to seek legal counsel. This has nothing to do with the length of, how long you've been in business. The contract's what really protects both parties. So this is why you need to seek legal advice when it comes to this stuff, and make them sign the document that says, I told them to go see a lawyer. Excuse me, I'm still under the weather. Yeah, that's right. And the other thing is you can tell them that your mentor, coach, which is Tim, basically, has done 50 lease options. That's who's guiding you. To say Tim Sy is your guidance, right? He's the one who taught you how to do it. He's the one that you can reach out to. He's done the guys, him and Ray are they're monsters with lease options. So that you can just lean on them for in the way of experience. But ultimately, they still need to go see a lawyer. This is what it comes down to. Always, people need to recognize that you're putting a deal together, but you're not there, to take responsibility for, their bad behavior, things not going right for them, or their protection. The protection and the transparency that you put forth to them about the deal itself is protection for both sides. You're not hiding anything, and people shouldn't be really concerned about being protected unless they're dealing with someone that's out to hurt them. And we're not out to hurt anybody. And even if we were out to hurt them, which we're not, their legal counsel would advise them as such. This is very important. We want people to use, the right power team members on both sides. So we want you to go see a lawyer. If you don't go see a lawyer and things don't go right, you can't put that on anybody but yourself. You're putting this deal together, and clearly the deal shows that the real money made in the lease option is at the end. That's where the big money's made. It's created in a way that we have parallel desires and needs and success. When you buy this property, that's when we really make money. Ultimately, we're providing a service for you. If it's something you want to do, great. If it's not, then that's okay too. We're not going to worry about it. But the protection part of it, we really want you to go see a lawyer. We really want you to go seek legal counsel. We want you to understand, the complete deal beyond what we explain to you. We want you to have your own independent legal counsel. So this is the way I would approach it with them. Any other questions? Okay, let's look at the other deal. Let's see. Let me see if I can bring that up. All right, I will share my screen now with you and we can review it together. Okay. This is the property, right? Yep. Okay. So we have 2 units, 1,600, 800 a unit, I assume, 38,400. Gross income is 38,400. Okay. Taxes, insurance, and we have gas. Okay. So I assume any other bills outside of this they are paying for. Is that right? So the tenants are paying for any bills outside. Is that right? All included in the cost. The 3,900 is inclusive of all bills. Is that right? Okay. And you have vacancy at 5, and you have maintenance at 5. So why do we have maintenance at 5? Is it a the building's in good shape? It's a young building. It's been well maintained. Well, you need some maintenance for sure, right? I'm just asking, is 5% appropriate for the property? We very recently renovated at 1,600 per unit per month. Oh, I see. Yep, 1,600. My apologies. Okay. Okay. Management is 6%. Why is that? Is somebody doing it at 6% for you? Is that right? We have a group at 6%. Okay. All right. So just that, and that's great. But I want to make clear to everybody: if someone's offering less than 10%, you need to make sure, which is great. 6% is great. Tells me there's lots of competition for management companies in the area, I would assume. I would always ask, how are they making money? Because 6% is very tiny, very tiny. What are they providing for the 6%, and how are they making money from managing my property? Which is fine. You want them to make money. You really do want them to make money. So when you see that, you want to make sure you understand how they're going to be profitable too. Every time they replace a tenant, they change something. They get 1 month every time they put a new tenant in. Is that right? Okay, and did you max that out at 1 year? Maximum 1 year? That you're only going to let them put a tenant in for 1 year? In other words, not as yet, still have to finalize contract. Okay, so I'd make sure that you're only willing to put up 1 month per year, and you'll give them a bonus every month after every year that they stay as a bonus. So they'll get the 12th month rent after year 1, right? You'll give them the initial, but after that, as long as they keep the tenant, you'll give them 1 month. But you're not going to pay them more than 1 month per year. This is the area that I would look into. Okay, so 6%. We'll leave it there for now. All right. So then we have. Let's look at the metrics. So the financing, you've established this. The second mortgage is this. Is this your numbers, 80 and 20, or were they there? You set those up? Okay. All right. So no money into this property. You have no money into the property. Is that right? Right. Okay. Good. All right. So average profit per unit 124. GRM is 11.72, a little bit high, but cap rate's 5.4, a little bit low. Cost per unit is 225. Oh, that doesn't care. We don't care about that really. Coverage ratio is 114. Okay, so all right, so the coverage ratio, I wish was a little bit higher. Runs a little thin. Obviously, having no money in is great. It helps. The additional, you have amortization period. So this, I'm assuming, what is that? Interest only. 90,000 is interest only. Interest only. Okay, I see. At 5%. Correct? Okay. All right. Okay. That's breaking it up a little bit, but really 5% is really 5% of 90,000 is almost exactly right. It's almost exactly right. So it's a touch higher because that would be 4,500 a year. So that's pretty accurate. Okay. So here we see that the estimated value is 244. Up here we had 250. To get the cap rate, let me see that again. Something's not right here. Oh, I see why. Because this, the financing, which would be 80, 20. This would be 25 years, 5, no, 2.5. And this is 5 at 99. It won't let you do 99. Okay, 20. Let's see something. Let's do 5. That's the number. That's right. Okay. And that's if we get it there. Okay, I'm just talking to myself here. Give me 1 second. Okay, something is missing here. What's missing? Oh, the cash on cash. Doesn't matter. The cap though is 10, which 244. That's right. 2.45. Is that what it was? 2.45. Okay. 12,000. Sorry here. Give me 1 second. Doesn't matter. Do it from there. 1 second. 20. It's 30 years? Okay. 30-year amortization. So that one, let's do 99. Give me 1 second, sorry. Here. Still, that would mean, oh, I see it. I'm losing my mind here. I'm sorry. I thought 244. I thought the property was 250. It's 450. Okay, now it makes sense to me. Okay, so here's a question where, the current cap rate's 5.4. The cash flow is, we want, 75 and met that commitment. The GRM is higher than we want. The current cap rate's lower than we want, and the coverage ratio is low. Now the property still works, even though the cap rate is low. Part of the reason that this property is still working for us is because we got a great rate on the majority of the mortgage, which is 2.45, and this other portion, this 20, is also at a great rate at 5, which is great. Now, because the financing is low, can anybody who can tell me what the real financing on this whole amount? Does anybody know how they calculate that? So just do a single year so you can make sense of it, okay? So actually, I'll show you another way, okay? This amount here, we're all going to agree, is $21,416 is what is being paid as a total amount, right? And this here, 1784, is what's being paid monthly, okay? So watch what we're going to do here to give you an example of, so that's 875, and that is 21,416.98. Now, this is what what's coming out monthly, okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what the actual interest rate on the whole amount is, because this 5%. Now remember, when we have that 10 cap rate, we need that 10 cap rate because we let our creative financing go up to 7 and still make money. The reason this works at 5.4, right? It's right on the edge, but it works, is because the real interest we're paying on this whole amount is, let's do this, let's show you the way. So let's imagine that this was 100% and that was 0. And let's see. So what we're trying to do by this is I'm trying to figure out the actual percentage of the whole amount. So I need to get this number, these two numbers, to match these two numbers, okay? So let's say I go to 3, okay? 3, no, a little bit higher, so 3.5, okay? Oh, a little bit, sorry. I want to go lower, so 3, let's try that again. 3 is 2.2, 27, the whole amount. Oh, this is 99, it's 4,500, 2.8, 2.6, 2.5, 2.5. Try that again. 2.47. 2.5 was the original. Oh, I see why. My apologies. I need to do something. I need to go 0 and 0. That's why. Okay. Now I got it. Okay, so 2.5. So look what happens here. 2.6. Not even. 2.55. There it is. Okay. So the whole amount, if we combine the whole amount, they're paying 2.55, a 30-year 2.55 interest rate. Would be the same thing as what they had before. Does everybody understand that? What I just did there? Who's confused? Is anybody confused? Because if you are, it's okay. Okay. The reason this works, and let's do this. I'm going to unshare my screen and explain what I'm saying here. Okay. The reason this works, and the reason that we want a 10 cap rate. Okay, so here we go. The reason we want a 10 cap rate. Okay, 10 cap. Does everybody understand what 10 cap means, right? It means if I have a $100,000 property, 100K, and I make 10K NOI, net operating income, before financing, I have a 10 cap rate. Does everybody understand that? So it's ROI. It's the same thing as ROI on the whole amount. I paid cash. Okay? Okay, that's what it means. Okay? Now, the reason we want a 10 cap rate, it's not a random number. The reason we want a 10 cap rate, because the 10 cap rate allows us to do what? Well, if I have a 10 cap rate, then because this is before financing, if I do creative financing at 7%, I still make 3%. Everybody see that? That's a rough breakdown, but that's pretty much the way it works. So if I was making 10K on that house, I would make still 3K, even if I was using creative financing up to 7%. Now, what does creative financing at 7% mean? Well, if I take a combination, I could take the whole amount at 7%, or I could do a combination of, 80% at 3%, and maybe 20% at as high as 10 or even 15%. I'd have to do the math on it. Does everybody understand? So it gives us more creative financing options. Now, the reason this property works is because if I have a 5 cap rate, a 5 cap, my creative financing has to be what? A maximum of 5. But to make money, it needs to be around 2 with a maximum of 3%, right? That's what it needs to be as a max. My total financing can't cost me more than 2 to 3, so I can make what? 2 to 3, percent from the total amount of the property. Does everybody understand that? Yeah. Is anybody confused? Because if you are, it's okay. Just let me know. Everybody understands that? That's clear to everybody? Okay. Well, that's excellent. So this property works. It's right on the edge. I wish your cap rate was around 6. Would be better. But, it's doable. It's just on the edge. You know what I mean? And I'll give you an example of what I mean. So if still works, you're going to do it. That's great. Just want you to see the whole picture here. So let me give you an example. So if this property works, even though it's a 5.4, because the financing's only costing us 2.5, they're still walking away with almost 3 as a spread. Everybody see that? Caps, current caps, 5.4. The financing at 100%, if we combine the two pieces of financing, ends up being 2.55. Does everybody see that? So this works. Well, that's excellent. That's good. Now, why will it be reappraised? Why is it only being appraised at that price, and after it gets reappraised, it'll be 520? I'm just curious. Okay, you're putting in the 35K? Okay, so is that inclusive of this price, the 450? So with renos, you need to change the number to add that to that. So now your cap rate is 5, a little thinner. Your coverage ratio is 106. Okay, because we added the 35, right? But the 35 you're paying yourself, right? So that would be like this. 80. Well, not quite 80. Be like 75, 15, and 10. Let me see. No, not quite. Let's go 8, 7, 7.2. Okay, there's your 35. That would be like that at 76. 90 is right. Well, 78. 77.8. That's what it would be like. Everybody see that? What I did? Wait, give me 1 second here. This is a static number. It shouldn't be. C7. Give me 1 second. It's going to be there. Okay. 4. 10. There we go. Now, do you remember what were they paying? What was the creative? This was 90,000. Does everybody see that? That used to be 90,000. That used to be 90,000. Everybody remember that? So what we're going to do is we're going to get that back to 90,000 because that's what they're going to get the loan for. 18, to get a better idea. 5, 18.6 maybe. Okay, 18.6 is close. We're 3 over. So that would be, let's make that 5. 4. Let's do that. How much was this amount? This used to be what? Do you remember? What was it, Ryan? What's the original amount there? 360. So we need that to go down to 360. That's close enough. And that would be 7.4. There you go. 7.4. Okay. Well, but that's a little bit more than you're paying. Well, it's close. It's close enough. Okay. This is your real numbers. Because you're putting up 35K, right? And let's change this to 99. This was 5. Here's our numbers. Okay? Yeah, for the second. And this was 4.25. Or no, 2.45. Yeah? There it is. See it? Okay. Everybody see what we did? Everybody see what we did? Okay. All right. So the property still works. Okay? The coverage ratio is still about 114, a little bit low. The dilemma I have now is I'm looking at it and I'm seeing the cash on cash returns only 8.45%. Now, we talked about this. It's okay to walk into this if you know you're going to be able to refinance it to get your 35 out. And that's what your intention is. Is that correct? Right. So what happens in this case is, when you refi it and you get your 35 out, then the numbers are going to make more sense. But right now, going back to the original point of this is the reason that a 5 cap rate can work is why, remember, right? The creative financing, combined financing only costs us, 2.55%. That's why it works. So you don't have to have a 10 cap rate. You don't have to have a 10 cap rate, but the lower you go, the more aggressive you have to be with your financing in the way of cost. Does that make sense to everybody? That's why the 10 cap rate is there for you. If you can't, get the 10 cap rate, how are you going to be able to finance this project? Now, we have an interest only situation here at 5%. That's making this work. But to give you an example, if this was, say, even 7, we're bleeding. If it was 6, we're at 90, we're okay. 6.5 looks about the break even somewhere. Not even 6.25. The interest is very close. I mean, at 7, we're losing money. So let's go back to 5. Let's go back up here. If this was 10, we'd be losing money. Okay? So this is not a bad deal. I wish it was a little bit better, right? It doesn't mean it's a bad deal and you don't have to do it. Don't do it. There's money to be made, but right now you're running a little thin. You're razor thin. It's a little thin, that's all. That's all. If you refinance it, I like this deal better for sure. For sure. Yeah, the refi is going to help it. I just, I want you to do something for me. Please be disciplined and put the vacancy money aside and put the maintenance money aside, even if you don't use it. Okay, so that $160 every month, I want you to put it in a separate place for the year to ensure that you're covered. Okay, so the 160, that's $2,000 and $2,000. Put that aside just to make sure that you're covered. So when we refi this property, it'll actually be the original numbers. Well, probably a little bit better. You said this will refi for how much? Okay, well, okay. So just to give you an example, so 520K. Here's a challenge with that. If I go equals this times 0.8, which is what they're going to give you, okay? Give me a sec. Can't put K. That's the problem. Okay, so 520K. Let's put that up there. Okay, and does everybody see what I'm doing? I'm doing a refi at 80%. That's 416,000. Okay. Now they're gonna. That's the max they'll give you. Is 416,000. You have a first mortgage at your first mortgage is how much? 360. And a second mortgage at 90, right? Okay. Now, when we sum these, we obviously get, what do we get? We get the original price that you had. $450. So when you refi this, your guy told you could refi and pay somebody back? Because if you refi this, you're going to get 416,000. Now you can pay, some of it back. When we refi, we should have 56K available over mortgage. 56K over mortgage? I'm not clear on that. Over the original mortgage? You mean over your first mortgage, right? Yeah. Yeah, from the first mortgage. That's right. So 390 you'll have, sorry, 360 you have $56,000. That's right. 56K. You can, what I would suggest in this case is I would take all of it for yourself. All of it. All of it. Now here's your situation though. Here's your situation. When you refi it, right? That's going to give you 56K, right? So your new number, yep. So your new first mortgage, still with the second one, your new first mortgage is going to go from 360 to what? It's going to go from 360 to 416. Right? So it's going to go from 360 to 416. So let's make that happen. So let's say we keep the 56K. Okay? So this becomes 0. Okay? We still have the 90,000 here, but now we have more here. So we're going to make this 80. Let's put the amount here. 416 will just be easier. 1, 2, 3. That's the mortgage. Okay, 416,000. We're going to put this to 85. Just checking the costs. Oh, 100%. There it is. Okay, so now, and that's going to be at 2.45, right? The value would be 520. You're right, but I'm looking at the mortgage part of it. The mortgage part of it. Don't worry about the cap rate. Don't worry about the cap rate. I'm looking at costs, right? So, of this mortgage, 416,000. The first mortgage of 416 will be 30 years at 245, correct? Okay. Your second mortgage is going to be, it was 90,000. So we need to get this up to, I'm just looking at costs, so don't worry. So look what happens. Look what happens. Your first mortgage, which is 90,000, is at 5%. Your second mortgage is at 30 years at 2.5%. That cost is going to wipe out your cash flow. Do you see that? But you have in your pocket how much? You have in your pocket how much? $56,000. But you're losing $16 a month on the property. So this is what I suggest. So perhaps we put 56 into the private mortgage at 10% to outpace interest. Perhaps we put 56K into a private mortgage at 10% to outpace interest. Oh, you mean lend the money? The 56 at 10? Is that what you mean? You know what? I like your creativity. I really do. I want that property to make money on its own. Now the loan is what's making money to cover the loss on this property. I'd rather the property make money on its own. So there's a couple things we can do. We could pay down one of the mortgages. We could get our 35,000 out and pay down one of the mortgages, but still, it's not gonna make us enough money. It really isn't to cover the cost. We could take the $56,000. You know, it doesn't really matter. But the only advantage of the $56,000 is paying down the second mortgage, right? Which isn't much, but it's something. So to give you an example, if you pay down the second mortgage, right, and you only 56, they only 56 and would believe 34. It'd be 34,000. No, 6. Let's try there. 8. 36. And you would be around still at 35. 2. Around there. Okay, let's see what that is. So this would be, yeah, that would work. That would work. Let's see. Yes, 44K. Sorry, 34K. Yeah, 34K for your part. You mean your rentals, right? Okay. So the refi left on the second mortgage, 34K. Yeah, roughly. Yeah. So your the refi is not really going to get your money out to make this work. You can improve your numbers slightly by paying off the second mortgage, which isn't terrible because you can probably access that money again since you've immediately given them some money back. At 5%, it's pretty much free, so that's great. Your property now makes $260 a month. Your cap rate's still low, but your financing is not even 2.55. It's like less than that. Your GRM is slightly better. Your coverage ratio went up a little bit, which is good. The only thing I don't like on this is the cash on cash returns under double digits. That's the only thing. That's the only part of this I don't like, because you can't really get your money out and make it money. Do you see that? Excuse me. Now, all this being said, folks, all this being said, keep something in mind. This money here is coming in, but we're not using it. Everybody see that? So to give you an example, if this was 0 and 0, right, which we're not leaving at 0, watch what happens. The cap rate jumps to 6.8 and their cash on cash return becomes 20. Everybody see that? Now this, and look at this, they're making $600 a month. Looks wonderful. The dilemma, and look at the coverage ratio. The coverage ratio with the bank's going to look at that coverage ratio and think, wow, that's awesome. The dilemma is, we know better, don't we? We know that there's going to be maintenance on the property and there's going to be vacancy. Now, your maintenance initially will be low because it'll probably be less than 5 or non-existent, really, almost, for the first few years. That being said, this money's your money, but I want you to put it aside to ensure that you're buffering the investment. I could manage it himself. I wouldn't do that, Dave, just because it might be tough to expand, right? If you save that $192, it's not worth it. I don't think it is. $192 for the time and energy. It's not a lot to be gained by managing yourself. Yeah, okay. So yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, different positions. People are in different positions. So, sometimes that's something you can do as a temporary thing, for sure. So the property itself, you can make this work, but you're making it work. You're making it work. Would like I said, the only thing I don't really like on this property is your cash on cash return, because you can't really take that 35 out. And this is what I believe, folks. If you're making, because really what you guys are making is 10% on your 35K. That's what you know that, right? You're making 10% on your 35K. You recognize that, right? Is that right? I just want to double check. That's what that number means. Your cash on cash return. Does everybody understand that? They're making 10% on their money. Okay. So then it begs what question? What question should we be asking ourselves? Two things. Can I do better? 1. 2. Can I get 10% without getting involved in the property at all? And if you can, then why not do that? Now, that being said, let's not discount a couple things. There's principal pay down with the mortgage. You're not, you're not paying out those bills. Those bills are being paid down. We've definitely made room for vacancy and maintenance, but all that stuff to me is bonus. If you're buffering, don't worry. You're not. I mean, it's not that cut and dry, but it's. I don't want you to depend on appreciation. I don't want you to depend on or the belief that everything is going to go perfect. Is the 520 an accurate estimate? Is there comparables to go off? Yeah, I mean, if your realtor is telling you 520, and that's real, there's one other option I would tell you to consider, just to consider, okay? Right? What if you flipped it? Okay, good. That's good. What if you flipped it? That's right, Ryan. You're right with the maintenance and yeah, pay down. Yeah, just maybe you flip it. Maybe you flip it and you make, you make. Let's see. If you flip it, you probably make 30 grand after all said and done, expenses and everything. Yeah, there's lots of things you can do. Yeah, 30 grand. So you can, or say you make 35, that'd be 100% return on your money, right? Say you made 30 grand on it, and there's nothing wrong with you. You can make this happen. I'm not. Please, I want you to just see all the options and opportunities here. If you took, let's say you make 30 grand. Would you agree we could make about 30 grand on this property if we flipped it? Does that sound fair to you? Okay. So this is another question you can ask yourself, all of you. So $30,000 is what we could possibly make. Okay? And the cash flow from this property is $132 a month. So if we did $132, and let's not do that. Let's do this. Let's make this a 0 and this is 0. Okay? If I made those both 0, that'd be 292 times 2. Okay? 292. Actually, let's do this because I want to show you something else. Equals this, right, times 2. Okay. So when we look at it, that's the monthly. If I go equals this times 12, that's the yearly. Then I ask myself this question. What if I looked at this, I said, okay, let's get rid of that. That's what I can make on a reno, the 30 grand. How many years will it take me to make 30 grand? That 30 grand in cash flow. So that becomes equals this 30,000 divided by this, 4.27 years. Everybody see that? Yeah. Now, let's put these back. 9.42 years with the buffers. Right? So if it took me less than 5 years to get that money cash flow, I would lean towards keeping it. If I could get if it took me 10 years to get the money, I'd flip it. Does that make sense to everybody? Let's see, 35,000. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? All we're doing is we're looking at all options, right? This is the stuff you want to look at and ask yourself, because the numbers will really guide you in maybe, getting what you want in a faster fashion. So if we can make $30,000 on this, it might be, or 35,000, say, it might be, better to flip it and get that money. Now, I didn't include, so if I took the 5%, and if I take these away, we're not going to count capital appreciation and pay down because I've taken those costs out. So you're still under 5 years. So, you're right on the edge of 5 years. So over 5 years, I would lean towards flipping it. Under 5 years, I would keep it for the cash flow. But that's your call. That's your call. But it's something to look at, right? Something to look at. We're not taking these properties on unless we're getting paid. You are getting paid in this. Excuse me. You are getting paid. It's just right now I feel like it's a little razor thin. Your renovation really makes me feel more comfortable, right? Because the property is going to be relatively new, so maintenance should be not a big concern unless something serious comes up. And your financing is making it work, and they're going to give you interest only for looks like 100 years, or interest only. I don't know what the term is. Um, I mean, the property can work, but you know, you're running just a little bit thin. That's all. That's all. That's all. I might lean towards a flip on this property, but I can see the appeal of keeping it. I mean, it's cash flow, and you're over 75. You're making 265 dollars a month on that property. It's not terrible. This is not a terrible property or a terrible deal at all. It's going to make you money. It's just I'm wondering if the money that we're going to make, because at the end of the day it's going to be around a 10% return, a little bit higher. Um, Maybe we can take a flip, take the 35K or 30K, and maybe do another deal. That's your call. That's your call. Any thoughts or questions on that? Oh, no problem. My pleasure. My pleasure. Does anybody have any questions about any of that stuff that we did? Did you feel like, did you understand that the benefits of going through that deal? And this is why it's so great when we're doing these deals and we do them together. And really, I appreciate you guys sharing this deal with us. It really gives us an insight, because this is real. This is happening, right? It really helps us understand, you know, what those numbers mean and how other numbers affect other numbers. So I think that it was a great exercise. I think a lot was gained from going through that. Does anybody have any questions at all? Comments? Confusion? And if you're confused, it's okay. You just need to say that you're confused so we can help you. So on this, Ryan, I would say to you guys can consider flipping it, just as, you can talk about that. And also, I would also make sure you nail down the management to make sure that you're in a good position for your management. That's what I would do. Okay. Any other questions? We're all good? Nobody has any questions? Okay. Okay. Excuse me. So it's 10:30. We spent the hour on that deal, and I think it was well worth it. We will move the walkthrough of lease options and financing, creative financing with it next week. Management group came recommended from some other area investors we met at the meetup event. Good. That's great. That's great. That's great. Okay, let's wrap up with any questions. Any questions before we wrap up for the night? If you're good, type in yes or why. Good. We learned some stuff tonight. That was good. That was good. That was great. Thank you very much for sharing the deal. All right, everybody. Have a great night. We will see you next Tuesday. I appreciate that. We will see you next Tuesday. And if you need anything between, you know what to do. And keep hunting out there. Keep sending the deals, and we'll go through them together, and we'll learn a ton together. So it's important that we have these meetings to ensure that we keep moving forward. I'm glad we do it, and continue to do it, and it ensures your success. So